Hold on tight for the next hour. You're entering into a place, a zone called the alternative to the alternative media. It's a place, a special place where even truth seekers fear to tread.
All right, people, let's move like we've got a purpose.
Affirmative.
Okay, Greg Anthony here, and glad you're back on the Investigative Journal on this March 10th, 2017 day on our calendar. And today let me start out with my Jesuit quote of the day. And really this is a little story about them. And what it has to do with is showing to people that they, the Vatican and the Jesuits, were connected to the formation of our country, and actually were the brains behind the American Revolution. Now, many historians never deal with the Vatican issue, also the issue of Freemasonry in the formation of our country. So let me start out with a quote by someone you may know or may not know, named Manly P. Hall. Now, in his Gnostic extravaganza, called Secret Teachings of All Ages, an encyclopedic outline of Masonic, Hermetic, Kabbalistic, and Rosicrucian symbology. He wrote this in 1988. Now, I might add, in the Freemasonry world, in the Jesuit world, he's an esteemed author, Manly P. Hall. And he said this, he said, not only were many founders of the United States government Masons, but they received aid from a secret and august body existing in Europe, which helped them to establish this country for a peculiar and particular purpose, known only to the initiated few. Now I'm going to continue this little short brief history lesson to help all those esteemed historians who get paid a lot of dollars to write all these history books that I frankly want my money back from when I went to college and took American history and world history, because they were teaching me fake news, as we hear today. But anyway, let's look at a man named Charles Thompson to show you who that august body is. And after that, I'll just answer a real simple question. What is this peculiar purpose for creating this country? And I think I can sum it up, and I'll do that in a second, with just 2 points. So anyway, the man best qualified to become our country's greatest historian, certainly the man with most complete access to primary sources of the revolutionary cause, was a man by the name of Charles Thompson. He was a classical scholar, a discreet Protestant, steeped in Medici learning, and he was known as the perpetual secretary of the Continental Congress. He inscribed minutes of every congressional session from 1774 until the ratification of the Constitution in 1789. Now, Thompson, if he walked out on the street, he would be called the man of truth. And after he retired, he went back to his farm and he began translating the Greek language Bible into English. But he was still frequently requested to write the definitive insider's story of the revolution, because he knew it all. He knew all the inner workings. It's similar to basically if to someone who's in Congress or in the White House who knows really all the dirty stuff that goes on behind the scenes between Georgetown University, a Jesuit-run school, which is right next to the White House, and our government. Well, Dr. Benjamin Rush overheard Thompson's reply to one such request and recorded it in his diary. Now, Thompson, I might add, didn't want to tell the truth about what really went on behind the scenes. And in fact, history tells us that he wrote a book. He wrote his diary, which had all these dirty little secrets in them, but somehow he never wanted to have it published. And some people say today it is locked up in the Vatican vaults, or it's in some secret Masonic lodge. Anyway, it'd be nice to get our hands on Thompson's work, wouldn't it? But he said this, Dr. Benjamin Rush back then said this, quote, "No," and that was referring to telling the truth about the behind-the-scenes workings of the Revolutionary War and what the Founding Fathers were really like. He said, "I ought not, for I should contradict all the histories of the great events of the Revolution, and show by my account of men, motives, and measures that we are wholly indebted to the agency of Providence for its successful issue." Remember those words, agency of Providence. "Let the world admire the supposed wisdom and valor of our great men. Perhaps they may adopt the qualities that have been ascribed to them, and thus good may be done. I shall not undeceive future generations." So basically, he's withholding some of the most important information about what our country was all about, who really formed it, for what reasons, and all these little dirty secrets going on back then. And he says, no, and basically what he's saying is, I don't want to destroy people's fantasy world. And we're still living in it 200 and some years later. Now, in Tupper Saucy's book, Rulers of Evil, who basically one of the few people I've seen write about this. There is one other book I found that had this information in it. And I remember before Tupper died, I had conversations over the phone with him. And he was, in fact, on my radio show a few times. And I asked him about this. And he said, "Greg, this is only the beginning. This is where the work begins. And you've got to start looking into this deeply." And he wrote this. And he said, whatever happens, there's more to be told. And we got to find this information and where this information regarding Thompson is. And I said, boy, that's going to be difficult. These secret societies are pretty difficult to find out what the hell they're doing, right? Well, here's what he said in his book about Thompson, and I quote Tupper Saucy here. He says, "What I believe Thompson was meaning to say," and I might say this, he was telling me this over the phone too, was meaning to say is simply that no historical account of the American Revolution can be truthful unless it discloses the role played by the agency of Providence alone. Now, notice that Thompson does not use the word providence alone. Now, providence is another way back then there. That's the agency of Christ, God. And notice that Thompson doesn't use this alone, he says, which was understood in his day to mean God or Christ. He does not say we are wholly indebted to providence or to God, or we are wholly indebted to Christ, but rather to the agency thereof. And if Thompson knew the word agency, which he had to know, was a synonym for vicar, and I can't imagine that a professional linguist who is translating the Bible, excuse me, could imagine that a biblical scholar of this quality wouldn't know what that meant. Then Thompson was most likely saying this: we are wholly indebted to the vicar of Christ, that is the Roman papacy. So there you go, you historians out there. That's good enough information to get started, isn't it? To at least start researching this connection between how the Revolutionary War was, I believe, orchestrated, just like the Jesuits orchestrated the French Revolution and many other revolutions during that period of time. And it's also interesting to note, if you start looking back at all these different revolutions going on regarding that time in Europe as well, it's amazing. There was Russian, there was Polish, there was a few others. And check it out, all within a certain period of time. Now, our historians, I think, purposely do not want you to know this, and are controlled by Jesuitism and Jesuit education today. That's why they work in the dark. That's why they can get away with this stuff. And let me say this, what Manly Hall was saying about this peculiar reason this country was formed. It was formed for one reason, two reasons really, to get Catholicism and the Vatican inside this country, because back when this country was formed, they were persona non grata, weren't allowed to hold office. There was only one state, well, Maryland, there was one diocese. Now look at it, they own half the country. And look at all their control. And if you don't believe me, just start checking out all the people that are educated through Georgetown and all of these connections that we talk about on this show. So that was one reason, because if they could get in there, they could then get their second reason done. A one-world religion, a one-world order created through supposed democracy, but really fascistic. And you're seeing that play out today. Just think about all the shows we've done about really what's going on behind the scenes in our country. So anyway, I thought that was a good way to get the show started. A very long Jesuit quote, but I think very worthwhile. And start thinking about those things. And I think I presented a good case that, excuse me, even R.W. Thompson knew what was going on back then, and shows you that the Jesuit hand, the Vatican hand, was instrumental in the formation of this country. Okay, so we're done with that. We have a good show today. I want to give you really 10 good reasons today and 10 good points to figure out who Donald Trump really is. Is he a Freemason working with the Jesuits? Is he for real and trying to buck the Pope? And some of his statements that show he's completely opposed to Pope Francis' globalist policies, and Donald Trump is this populist trying to save America. So we're going to present 10 points for you to figure out if he's on the level. Okay? I thought that'd be a good thing to do. But first, let me give you 2 interesting stories that are in the news today. Pope Francis, who's trying to change things from within the Catholic Church, trying to basically bring this liberal theology to fruition, today stated that he thinks it's very important, maybe, that priests should be able to marry in the Catholic Church. You know they have a secular, basically priests aren't allowed to get married, and so the Pope is really rattling things within the church. Many of the traditionalists wanted him ousted. So now he wants priests to get married. Now my point is this. This opens up a real interesting story. He didn't say a marriage between a man and a woman, did he? And knowing the homosexual problem in the Catholic Church is unbelievably high, would he allow a man to marry a man? It's legal in our country, right? A nun to marry a nun? A priest to marry a priest. We know, if you look at some of the stories we've done in Italy, there's a priest up in northern Italy, and we talked about this with Leo Zagami, that's actually encouraging bestiality. Yes, and it's doing it on the altar with prostitutes. So no holds barred in the Catholic Church today. So I imagine that there would be a lot of these priests might just get married out in the open, right? Wow. That'd be an interesting story. Another one. Okay. Just think about that story. Another story today is that robots now are flipping burgers and these fast food joints and going to get rid of all these low-class workers. Okay? Low-paid workers. And personally, do you want a robot flipping your burger? And also, they have robots now that are actually tending bar. Now, who the hell wants to go to a bar and talk to a robot? You know, half the time of going to a bar is to drown out your sorrows with the bartender. And when I was a young kid in college, that was my first job in college. I had to get a job bartending. So I know all the stories that go with that job. And man, would you want a robot there? And really, how far will it go? Really, how far will it go? Will we, according to the liberals today, I imagine they'll be encouraging us to marry robots, They can dress them up really nice, huh? Well, I personally will not buy a burger from a robot or go to a bar that has a robot attending, as long as I'm here on this earth. Okay. So now let's get to the major part of the show. How to figure if Trump is on the level. Okay. And I presented 10 points here. And I can, hopefully, I got 10 minutes on this side of the break, and then we'll continue. And if not, I got some other things we can fill in. But how to figure out if Trump is on the level. I mean, truthfully. And don't listen to this Hegelian left and right dialectic that the left is right and the right is left and, all of this stuff. You know what I'm talking about. In fact, I had a conversation today with somebody about chemtrails. And she said, yeah, they want to get rid of the EPA, too. Trump wants to get rid of the EPA. And I said, well, if they want to get rid of the EPA, is he really for real? I mean, why doesn't he get rid of chemtrails? And I said either Obama or Trump would never do that because they work together. So let's look at Trump and start with the war on drugs. We've heard that ever for God knows how many years, since the 60s and the hippies and the drug movement and all that. And the American government has a war on drugs, a war on drug dealers, etc., etc. And now you're hearing this opioid, heroin influx in our country that's killing huge amounts of people all over the place. One governor now has filed on the East Coast, one of those states, I believe, I can't remember exactly which one. He filed a state of emergency because deaths on heroin overdose are just tripling or quadrupling. So we have this war on drugs, and Trump vows to stop the cartels from coming in, spreading drugs. He wants to do that, to build a wall, stop migration, to make the borders tighter. And I say, okay, that sounds good. But is he really on the level? Or is this just another game that they all play? And the reason you have to think about that is if he is true, he will then tell you about Operation Gladio, which we talk about on this show a lot, that started back after World War II and is now morphed into Operation Gladio 2, where actually, the government, the Vatican, and all these people profit from drug dealing and allow major drug dealers to exist in this country and actually bring drugs over like they did in Mena, Arkansas with William Clinton. So unless he gets to that point, I don't think he's on the level. All right, we can go on forever about why he doesn't prosecute Clinton for many, many different things, and why the truth has never come out in the mainstream media regarding Clinton's connection to the drug cartels. And so what he's doing is making it seem to you that we're going to stop drugs when in fact they're going to allow the big boys still to do it. They're going to profit from it, and they'll never tell you the truth about Operation Gladio. They'll never tell you the truth about the poppy fields in Afghanistan that our military is protecting. And so with that one point, I have to check it off. Trump is not on the level. And he's no different from Obama, except he's pushing a right-wing agenda. Okay, one of the other things he says he's going to do, and he's doing, I'm going to dismantle the Environmental Protection Agency. I'm going to cut down on regulations. I want clean air, I want clean water, but I'm going to cut down on regulations. Those are Trump's words. But if he really wants to do that and protect the environment that way, but also allow business to flourish, why doesn't he sign an executive order ending chemtrails, ending probably all that spraying you see in the skies going on since the 90s that contains barium, aluminum, strontium, which is not good for your health, will kill you, will kill the environment, will kill plants, will kill water, and we talked about that yesterday on our show, and this has been going on for 30 years, but still the planes are flying all over the place. So I'll check off number 2. He's not on the level, and he's no different than Obama, but pushing a right-wing agenda, and Obama the left-wing agenda. And so many people get caught up in it, and they don't look at the stories that should be talked about. Now let's talk about health care. All you hear about is Obamacare is a disaster, and it is. They wanted basically to have this system fail so they could have government-mandated health insurance like they do in Canada, and so the government's going to tell you what doctor to see, where to go. Now, Trump says, no way, we're going to pass a fair health care law that's going to give you freedom of choice, etc., etc. But is he on the level here? Does he really tell you that the health care system wants you to get sick, that chemotherapy is no good, and that alternative medicine has probably been, how about all the alternative doctors that have been killed in the last few years? We've documented over 40 who want to get to the truth behind cancer and show you that the FDA, that all of these agencies are promoting it, are allowing it to exist. The more people sick, the more money they make. So is he ever going to say that? No. So, check off number 3. He's not on the level. And he's no different than Obama, except that Trump promotes a right-wing agenda and Obama a left-wing agenda, but essentially they're doing the same thing, not getting to the bottom of the truth of any of these things I've just mentioned. And that's 3. So these are facts we can use to figure out who Trump really is and what he's doing. Now, I don't have anything good to say about Obama as well. You know that. Now, let's go to number 4. And we probably get this one. We'll do the next 6 on the other side. of the break. He says he wants Christians to have a voice. He got elected because all these ecumenical Christians voted for him. He says Christians have been overlooked. They haven't had a voice. They're being tortured all over the world while Muslims are allowed to come into this country and create havoc, right? But will he release Tony Alamo, as we're going to try in a petition, to get a Christian pastor who's been jailed for 175 years for crimes he didn't commit because he's out at the Vatican and this system we're talking about here? If he does that, he's on the level. If he doesn't, he's not. It's pretty simple. And also, will he continue to allow Fethullah Gulen here? You know who he is. We've talked about him, at least if you listen to this show. You're not going to hear it on either the left or the right-wing shows. But Fethullah Gulen, right, is an Islamic cleric who was brought here by Clinton, who basically is a radical Islamist. He's done it all over the world. We documented it 10 years ago. And Fethullah Gulen is being given a mansion in the Pocono Mountains. He's been given over $500 million a year to create charter schools in the name of moderate Islam, in quotes, when in fact it's radical Islam. Turkey, in the recent coup, the president who basically, the CIA, along with, others in our basic system of overthrowing everyone in the Middle East so that radical Islam can take over, said he wants Fethullah Gulen back in Turkey so he can stand trial for all the crimes he committed there, because he did the same thing there. And he did it in Norway. He did it in Sweden. He did it all over the world. And we've documented it 10 years ago on this show. But since Erdogan has asked both Obama and Clinton, or Obama and Trump, to release Gulen, Gulen still sits there. No one talks about it. All right? That's two things he should do. Now, will he out the ecumenical movement and discuss the Jesuit infiltration of Protestantism in this country? No. Well, if he does that, if he does those three things I just said, and will he ever admit that the Vatican and the elites worship Lucifer? Will he admit the Jesuits control Freemasonry? If he does all that, he's on the level. But he's not good. He hasn't done it yet, so I say he's not on the level, just like Obama isn't on the level. And the only difference is that Trump, and I emphasize it again, pushes the right-wing Hegelian dialectic agenda, and Obama pushes the left-wing Hegelian dialectic agenda. Totally opposite on the surface to get you and me to fight over it. When in fact, they're allowing all this garbage to go on behind the scenes so that this one world order, this peculiar reason for this country to be formed that Manly P. Hall talked about, will come to fruition. That's why they never do it. And will they ever do it? Will the media ever cover any of these things I talk about? Sure, you can go to some alternative media, but they're now depicting everyone in the alternative media to be fake news. They probably say this was fake news. But I'm presenting facts that need to be discussed. That's all. And they won't do it. I've called many of the Jesuit provinces here. People don't realize how powerful these people are. I've presented some of these questions to them in years past, and they don't want to talk about it. No one wants to talk. Our history books don't want to talk about it. People in government don't want to talk about it. Most of the Protestant pastors don't want to talk about it. And that's what really the problem is. It isn't fake news. It's the news that's ignored is what you should worry about. The things they don't tell you. And so many people will just listen to what they say and say, well, he's right because he's on the left. He's a liberal. And then the other guy over there will say, no, he's right because he is a patriot American and he's on the right. And that's what they want you to do. But if they can get you to fight over these things, all these other things get overlooked. So we went through 4 points to prove if Trump is on the level. So far, he's failed on every one. So we'll be back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
The book of Revelation says, "The spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ." This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today, so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.
The following program is labeled dangerous and off limits by the supreme Jesuit command. But stand tall, people. Listen up, and you may just learn something.
Oh, dear Lord Jesus, this ain't happening, man. This can't be happening, man. This isn't happening.
Okay, we're back for the second half hour of the Investigative Journal, and we're going over 10 points to figure out if Donald Trump is on the level. Okay, I think if you listen to the last half hour, you're going to get more points and more little facts to research to get at the truth than you will get if you listen to the mainstream media or all these provocateurs like Alex Jones and others on the web. Then you'll get in 10 years. And I did it in 24 minutes. But I got another 24 minutes for you, or how many? 30 minutes. And I'm going to go through 6 more points to give him a chance. I mean, Obama's no different. I could do the same thing with Obama, and he would be completely opposite. He didn't care about the war on drugs. He didn't want to dismantle the EPA. He wanted to make it bigger. He wanted to create a government health care. He hates Christians, right? Just the opposite of Trump, and was a Muslim sympathizer. He didn't want to deregulate banking, or well, I'm going to get into that right now, so I better not jump ahead of myself. So let's start with some other things to prove if Trump is on the level. So we saw with those first 4 points that the premise I laid out, both of these guys are complete opposites, right? But none of what they do agree upon is everything else I said. None of them want to mention any of this stuff. But as far as what you hear on the surface, they're completely opposite. And as I continue with these 6 points, you'll see it continues. Another point here, number 6. No, this is number 5. Now, Trump, this is an important point. He wants to deregulate banking, end Dodd-Frank. If you don't know what that is, that's a regulation that really limits community banks from lending money to average people. Okay? So you can't get your business started. A lot of people can't get home loans, stuff like that. And Trump wants to change all that, make it easier, get rid of these killing regulations that are thwarting business. But the real question here is, will he ever tell you the real truth about how the Federal Reserve is not federal? It's actually made up of foreign banks. Yes, our system is controlled by foreign banks. They create fiat currency, which has no value. They drive up a debt of now $20 trillion and basically taken away gold and the gold standard from our country and created a system of fake currency that has nothing to do with the federal government. They created an agency called the Federal Reserve that controls interest rates, all this different stuff. But it's actually foreign banks that do that. Will they ever tell you that? No. Either Trump nor Obama will tell you, and let me emphasize the reason. And the reason I'm emphasizing it after every point is it may drive the issue home. The only difference is Trump drives a right-wing agenda and Obama the left-wing agenda. Exactly the Hegelian dialectic to pit one half of the country against the other to get the synthesis they desire, to keep you in the dark about all the things that I mentioned. Now, number 6, we're giving him a fair shot. He failed again in 5 points, and Trump, to me, is not on the level. Okay? Number 6, one of his big campaign agenda issues was to lower taxes. Lower taxes for the middle class, lower taxes for small business and large business. Business tax is amazing, 35% right now. Now, that could be a little, fake because businesses have a lot of little loopholes. They got to pay accountants a lot, so they actually probably don't pay 35%. But that's what it is on the books, and he wants to lower it to 15%, which he says will encourage businesses, will encourage people to have more money in their pocket when their income taxes go down. But will he ever tell you that the income tax law is unconstitutional? Yes. And he will ever tell you you don't have to file or pay income taxes. He won't tell you that because he's going to play the game just like Obama and just like all left-wing and right-wing presidents have. If you look at the truth behind the income tax, it's still unconstitutional. You have only pay it because you think you have to, because the IRS puts you in a state of fear. All they ever tell you is this fake idea. The only thing real is taxes and death. Well, let me tell you this. If you really look at it from a lawyerly point of view, and you don't have to take my advice because nobody will, a few people have, you don't have to file income tax. It's voluntary. It's a voluntary tax, and every year you can either say yes or no. Now, if you want to go ahead and pay it, go right ahead. Now, if he would tell you that, he may be on the level. But Obama won't tell you that either. But you see, Obama wants to raise taxes on the left. Trump wants to lower them. The Hegelian dialectic. And again, Trump fails. Number 7. This is a good one. And we can talk a little bit about this. Trump wants to build up the depleted military that Obama has supposedly destroyed, and he has. If you look at every aspect of our military, whether it be the Air Force, whether it be the Army, whether it be the Navy, it's at one of its lowest levels in some instances since World War I, some since World War II. They just had a show on yesterday regarding one of the forts, I can't think of the name of it, not Fort Bragg, but another one that's crumbling. The infrastructure is crumbling. They haven't built new buildings there since, God knows, 1935 or something, 40. So anyway, Trump wants to spruce up the military, give it what it should, in case saying a statement like this, peace through strength. Who said that before? Reagan. Well, we've been at war. What do you tell people here? Really have to understand this. All but 20 years of our country's history, we've been at war. There's been a war for all but 20 years, and I submit that most of them are orchestrated. Now, Trump wants to build this depleted military up. Now, again, let's compare him in these last few points, like we have been doing, to Obama. He wanted to destroy it, deplete it, destroy it, build it up. Trump building it up, Obama taking it down. The Hegelian dialectic. But will any of them ever admit to you that the wars are orchestrated? Will ever any of them admit to you that our country functions because of wars? That they're making a lot of money in military arms that they're selling all over the world? To even ISIS? No, he won't. And so we have, again, number 7, Trump is not on the level, just like his predecessor wasn't on the level. And the only difference being, he pushes the right-wing agenda, Obama the left-wing agenda. But none of them will ever get to the truth about the orchestration of wars, the orchestration of World War I, the orchestration of the Civil War, the connection of the Jesuits to the Civil War, to the Revolutionary War, to World War I, World War II, the Korean War. I'm just naming the big ones, the Vietnam War. None of them will ever get to the bottom of how these things get going. Will any of them tell you about Pearl Harbor, the truth, that FDR knew about it? It was the match that lighted the fire of World War II that they had to do. Will anybody ever tell you that 9/11 was an inside job? No. None of this, all this stuff gets covered up. But if they play a good game, if they play this Hegelian dialectic, what they're doing now is probably their best Broadway show ever. And we'll start the second act of the greatest Broadway show ever produced in the history of mankind, which I did a whole series on that during the presidential selections. We're going to start again after 100 days. And these are all the points building up to it. It's the greatest show on earth they're doing now because they are getting so much interest. People are rioting in the streets. The right wing is saying, oh, we finally got a guy that wants to make America first. And everybody's so involved in this that they're getting away with all these other things that are really the important things that we should know about. That's how they operate. When is the next war they're going to orchestrate begin? I don't know. I think now they're trying to create both a civil war in this country and then a foreign conflict along with a terrorist conflict. So they got a 3-prong agenda here to destroy this country. I believe that's what's happening. And they have to do this, I should say, because they cannot have a one world order and a one world religion without America falling and without Western civilization falling. And that's what's happening right now. And the point I mentioned about the Pope, all the crazy things he says now, just another example of a Jesuit deceiving you. That's what he is. He's a first Jesuit Pope. Now they got both the black Pope and the white Pope in the one. Right. And we know, if you really want to boil down who the real controller has been for years, it's always been the black Pope in Rome. And I learned that when I lived there for 7 years. So if they ever want to get to these subjects, I would say Trump, by depleting the military, is on the level. But he's not. And again, for the 7th time, the facts that I presented, Trump fails. And you know why he fails. We'll go on to number 8. He wants to drain the swamp. That, at the end of his campaign, that was three words that catapulted him to power. Okay. He wants to drain the swamp. Now, Obama did just the opposite. He wanted to build up the swamp, create more landmines there so that the NSA could transfer all its information to the 17 intelligence agencies and the CIA could run wild. Obama was basically well known for all of his dirty tactics, but the media never covered it because, they're on his side. But Trump's just the opposite, right? Hegelian dialectic again. Drain the swamp. Get rid of these people. But just on the surface of it, will he ever prosecute Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton? No. He treats them like they're... Remember he said after he got elected, oh, these are really great people. After just about 2 weeks ago, he was saying put Hillary Clinton in jail for treason, for what she did by putting all of our national security at risk, or get to the bottom of the pay for play with Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton Foundation that raised billions of dollars from foreign entities. Or in fact, look back into all of the murders these people have been behind. If he did that, I might think he's on the level. But if he doesn't, isn't he just playing a game with them? Isn't he just on their side too, just kind of, playing a nice little game? And what will he say if you say, well, you said you were going to prosecute Clinton. Well, it wouldn't be good for my administration now. This shows, obviously, that he works together with the other side. Can't be any other way. Otherwise, a lot of these people would pay for what they did. Clinton especially, just the Mena, Arkansas, drug dealing stuff that is, out in the news. How many journalists, 2 or 3 I know, were killed because of their stories? And the death trail, when you start looking at it, and we've done the Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton death toll. Don't be a bodyguard for Bill Clinton, let me tell you that. Many of them never saw the light of day. And this shows to me, if Trump was on the level, he would prosecute her and do much more to drain the swamp. So to me, it's just a left-right game that he's playing. And I think people ought to realize that, to get down to the real truth, don't you think? And there's another thing going on. This, you might not follow it closely as I do. Like I said, I have to follow this stuff, just so I could sound, or at least compare it to what I think to be issues that need to be discussed. I'm not saying believe what I say. I said put them on the table and let the facts tell us where to go, but they don't ever get there. Because both of these sides work together. Now, just a little thing going on now. You've heard about all the information about the NSA, CIA, gathering information, able to spy through the use of television. They can look at, I'm looking at my television, they're probably looking at me now. They can hack into TV sets. They can monitor your bedroom. They can listen to you through your iPhones, your computer, even if you turn them off. Well, that's an interesting thing. How the hell what if you cut out you have to take out the cord from the electric? They have to do that. I mean, I guess that would be a way to protect yourself. But they say, well, yeah, this information came out, and all these leaks are coming out because Trump stupidly allows all of these people from Obama administration to stay there. Why? Could it be to create conflict? I remember, at least when Clinton got into office, the first day he fired 92 attorneys, U.S. attorneys on his first day. Now, if Trump was on the level, 1, he would prosecute Clinton. 2, he would have gotten rid of all the leaks and all of the Democratic operatives that Obama allowed to be there. He would also get rid of Executive Order 13222 that Obama basically changed. And what Obama did with that was, in that executive order, Obama, 2 weeks before he left office, decided to expand the 17 intelligence agencies' knowledge. Now, usually it's one intelligence agency, the main one, that controls the highly sensitive information. But he allowed, through this executive order, the amending of 13222, to allow all 17 agencies to have all this secret or confidential knowledge, this national security. And that's where all these leaks are coming from. Now, if Trump was on the level, he would amend and get rid of 13222, he would fire all these people, but he's not doing it. He's allowing them to do this to him. Could it be to create more divisiveness between the left and the right? Simply a Jesuit plot? Yeah, I think so. Because I know if it was on the level, if he was on the level, he'd do all the above things that I said. So there we have it. 8 points that I presented to answer your question that I get a lot of time, is he on the level? Okay. Number 9, he wants to eradicate ISIS. Okay? Now, I'm not going to talk a lot on this because I could go on to the cows come home, to hell freezes over, to whatever other cool thing you can say like that. But I'm just going to say this. If he was true about ISIS, he would tell you that it wasn't only Clinton that formed it or Obama. He'd get to the bottom of it. You'd see the Jesuit Vatican connection. He'd also start talking about the truth about 9/11, how that was orchestrated. And the real question is, would he ever admit to the truth about all of the money and all of the Jesuit influence to the Muslim world, and really what they're doing regarding how they're allowing all of these radical groups to exist in this country alone? What he's got you doing here is looking at this immigration. Let's not let them in. Let's not let them in. And the only people he wants to get out, he says, are the drug people. Now, that's a pretty good cover, but why doesn't he go and immediately tell the FBI to go up to an upstate New York town called Islamburg and immediately remove all of these radical Muslims there that are in a compound of about 40 acres, actually carrying guns, walking around marching, saying death to America. And there's a number of organizations like the Brotherhood of whatever in this country, and all of these organizations I just mentioned that's in Islamburg. There's like 30 or 40 of these in our country existing now, but they're allowed to be here. If he was on the level, he would immediately tell the FBI to throw him out. But at the same time, he won't do anything about Christian persecution. He hasn't yet. We're going to send this petition to get Tony out of prison. And here's a man that did nothing, and that ministry did nothing but spread the Bible, and also talk to you about the Vatican connection to our government, and really how even the book of Revelations calls them the Antichrist system, just as the Protestant reformers did during the Protestant Reformation. The Jesuits were then formed to eradicate the Protestant Reformation. And why doesn't he talk about that when he brings up all of these fake Protestant ministers that supported him, that actually are closet Catholics, that really are not getting to the truth, even what biblical truth is? So if he did that, I'd say he was on the level. But since he hasn't, again, he fails, just as his predecessor did. His predecessor, let's just give an example to show you the Hegelian dialectic again. Obama didn't even want to tell you that he wouldn't even say the word radical Islam. He was a Muslim supporter. Now we got a guy that's basically on the other side, Trump. Let's eradicate radical Islam. The Hegelian dialectic to a T, but never getting to the real truth behind it. Now, number 10, and our last one for the day, is a pretty obvious one. All of a sudden, I don't remember ever hearing this term be used much, fake news. He says the mainstream media is fake news because they've lied about everything he's done. But my question to all of these people, I'm going to lump them all together. They're all fake. Obama's fake. Trump is fake. The mainstream media is fake. Many of the alternative media, controlled by the Jesuits, funded by them, and they realize people are going to really get their news from the internet too. All of these provocateurs, a couple who I had a chance to work with years ago, like Alex Jones, or at least have a radio station. I was on a show many times. I had my show after his and learned about what these guys are really like. So they're all fake. So let's tell the truth here. Here's the real deal. It's what is ignored by them that is the real issue. Now, you can go on the rest of your life listening to Fox News if you're a right-winger, or CNN if you're a left-winger, and take sides and find things to agree with, things that agree with you. But you're never going to know the things they're not telling you unless you do it yourself. So, again, his description of fake news is not right because they're all fake. And we've now presented to you 10 things to look at. So you can make up your mind that Donald Trump is no different than Obama, except that he brings this Hegelian dialectic to us in the right-wing form. Now, are there any positives that we can take out of this? Of course. Because throughout the course of history, even though we talk about all the ways that these countries are, look at what has happened in all of the countries in South America, Latin America, overthrowing governments. Look what we did in the Middle East. But in the wake of all this stuff, you can get some advantages here. And what I say is the little things that you might be able to take advantage of is now the turn of the people on the right, right? So they give the people on the left a number of years to get a little bit of satisfaction. What I mean by that is maybe you can get a couple little things done for yourself. And that's what I recommend people on the right do now. Figure out ways you can, your philosophy can better you a little bit, but don't ignore the major thing they're trying to do. And by doing that, by understanding that a lot of these issues I raised that they're not going to tell you are probably the key to really functioning in this world so you can get through it. You got to look into it yourself. And I can categorically say, from my perspective, he has failed on every one of these points. He's not on the level. Now, whether he's a strong Freemason or whether he is a Satanist or whether he's blah, 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 to me, I'll let others look into that. I'm looking at strictly facts that tell me that he is working an agenda for the elite for some reason to do the peculiar things that Manly Hall talked about. Remember? The peculiar reason, a one-world government, a one-world order. The reason this country was formed, and he's just another one, moving it that way. Okay, we're going to take the weekend off. We'll be back. Have a great weekend. See you Monday on The Investigative Journal.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
I know you all want answers, and believe me, so do I, and I'll do my best to get them.
Despite Nicolas Cage's promise to do his best to get left behind rapture answers for us, don't hold your breath. Not everyone believes Left Behind is true prophecy. Some may even regard as conspiratorial the mainstream re-release of the Left Behind movie with actor Nicolas Cage portraying the main character as an attempt to further reinforce in the minds of all this perception of false prophecy in order to condition the masses for the play about to begin. If you want true Bible prophecy answers, get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. The author exposes the Latin rapture origin, the 7-year tribulation deception, true Bible revelation of Daniel's 70 weeks, the abomination of desolation, the restrainer, America in the Revelation, the image of the beast and the mark of the beast, and the truth about God's chosen people, and so much more about Bible prophecy. This book will shatter the Left Behind paradigm of future events. Get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, To get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled, that's crosstheborder.org.